So while everybody's reviewing Wonder, here I am reviewing a space Korean opera. And welcome to the Review Tuesday. My name's Ruben, and this is my review for Space Sweepers, a Netflix original movie. Well, it is now because they've bought the license. Before we jump into it, don't forget to give us a thumbs up, comment down below. It really does help. Share the love around because sharing the love is awesome. But for now, let's jump into the review. Set in the year 2092 and follows the crew of a space junk collector ship called the Victory when they discover a humanoid robot named Dorothy that's known to be a weapon of mass destruction. They get involved in a risky business deal. When I saw the trailer for this film, I thought this was going to be a cheesy film. I expected to not enjoy it at all, and I wondered if I was going to have to put on my non-thinking brain and just enjoy it for a bad sci-fi. And there is elements of that to it. However, I enjoyed it much more than I thought I was going to. I was going to compare it to something like Space Truckers, a really cheesy, bad, old 90s film.
Space Truckers.
And it's not like that, thankfully. There are elements similar to that. It would be more interesting to compare it to The Wandering Earth, another massive blockbuster sci-fi film. I've seen some really negative reviews already from this, mostly from, I guess, what you call non-professional critic reviews, but some of them are saying that this film has no imagination, which is just bizarre, because the one thing this film has is imagination. The story is far more complex than you initially think at the beginning. You think it's going one way, and then the story devolves and does that. When they do that with the characters' backstories, which they give ample time to, which I really appreciated, and so once you get to know your backstories of your characters, you're that much more invested in this crew of the Victory. It does hark to similar series or films that we've seen, you know, The Expanse,
Say no more.
Firefly.
Okay.
It kind of has that kind of crew, that quirky crew that we get. We have an android, we have a guy that's from the mafia, we have a captain who has a really dark history, a guy that's looking for his daughter. So they each have their backstories. They are thrust together on this, basically a rebel crew. And that sort of story always works well. And then you thrust that into a sort of cyberpunk, futuristic look. You know, it's again the post-apocalyptic future of where Earth is on its last dregs, and we're trying to deal with space. We're trying to find another home. We have the separation of classes once again. Who is the better human can live out in the clean air, and who's the bad human can live in the smog. It's that sort of, you know, Blade Runner-esque storyline. What I really like about it is how realized the worlds feel. So when you're in the alleyways, everything is full. It all feels messy. It feels very claustrophobic, even though there's lots of space, because there's, you know, junk, debris in space completely everywhere. Just where you're walking is completely filled with random things that you can go and have a look at that would make sense to be there. I think the art department had a lot of fun on this film. It also claims to be, I think, the biggest one of the most expensive Korean sci-fi films ever. Sci-fi, have to specify that. And you can see that they had a lot of fun ticking the boxes of things that you'd expect to see in a sci-fi big blockbuster film. That's not to say some of the dialogue isn't terrible, because there are moments when some of the main characters, especially the generic bad guy, when he's delivering some of his lines, especially towards the end, I did cringe a bit, because I was like, oh, you didn't have to say any of those lines. We get what you're going through. It just feels like they're covering all their boxes inside, just in case the audience doesn't know what he's thinking or what we want them to feel. We don't know how to make them feel what the bad guy is feeling right now. We're going to get him to say it. And that's exposition dumping, which is not a great tool when you're using your craft in cinematography. However, it looks fantastic. There is a huge spectacle adventure that goes on here. There are lovely robotic creature designs, spaceship designs. I love the way we get space battles. That is a lot of fun. It has all that action adventure that you expect, hand-to-hand combat, you know, space battles with spaceships against missiles, android fights, emotional beats that eventually come ground you into liking the characters more. Again, I've already mentioned the grounding of the realization of the world feeling very real. When I say world, I mean wherever they're at, the world, as in the written world, that the creators were trying to get to the viewer to really understand what you're meant to be feeling at that moment, which I got. There is some terrible cheesy dialogue, and there is definitely moments where you're like, you wouldn't survive that, you should be dead. Put all that aside when you're watching a sci-fi escapism film, blockbuster stuff, and grab your popcorn and get a drink and just enjoy it for what it is. And I feel like that's saying that it's worse than it is, because it actually is a really fun film. Think of your really fun, not too serious sci-fi action adventure films, and then have a bit of culture in there, and then add a bit of things that you've seen in these action sci-fi films before, and that is the sort of ride you're on. It is over 2 hours long as well. It's 2 hours and 15 minutes long. I do feel like it gets a little bit long in the tooth in the middle somewhere, where they're really they've gone and given us the padding of the backstories, but then they kind of giving us more padding of certain characters that didn't really play a massive part in the story. For example, we get a little bit of backstory with the bad guy, but unless you're actually going to develop the bad guy, the generic bad guy, properly, then there's no real point to it. I would have liked some much deeper philosophy as to why the bad guy is doing what he is. He's just that generic bad guy. I like this. I feel like you guys are scum and I'm the better one. He's consumed with power. You know, it's that sort of character bad guy. I don't think he played it badly. I just think that what he had, that is what they were trying to go for, so that they weren't really concentrating on what the bad guy was going to do. Of course, we have that bad guy boss towards the end, bad guy boss fight. But mostly the story is the character journeys that these characters go on, and the character developments that they go on with this MacGuffin, which is the girl that is on the ship, and you see them all develop. And so by the time you get to the end, you are invested in the characters. So when stuff does happen to the characters, you're like, no! That is what an epic space battle adventure should do, and I think it ticks all those boxes. So if you take this too seriously as a critic, then you're going to miss the point of this film. It's not like an Oscar-worthy film for massive dialogue scenes or those moments that people are going to remember. But it is a film that I would love to talk about with my friends and say, hey, how about that android? He was fantastic. My favorite character, by the way. I didn't see that moment coming. Or, yeah, that's really fun. In a couple of months, I probably won't mind switching this on again just to sit back and enjoy a fun fantasy action film. So I'm going to give it A-, not because it is like that quality compared to some other films which are given A-, like Inception, you know, that sort of level, just because the level of enjoyment I had while watching it, it took me by surprise. So don't hate me. I thought it was pretty good and I enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments below, what is your favorite film of this genre like this? I'd love to know. Maybe there's a few that I haven't seen, so I can stick them on and have a gander. It is my favorite genre to watch, other than like orcs, like Lord of the Rings, that sort of fantasy, not sci-fi fantasy. But thanks so much for watching this review. Most of all, until next time, remember, live long and Tuesday.